Good nap. See, in between videos, I'm doing nothing but sleeping. Whenever I'm not on your screen yapping about Space Station 14, I'm taking a good old nap. And I sure am glad that I had that nap, because man, I feel fucking fantastic. No, I don't. Oh, anyway, let's check out Space Station 14. See what's new. Wonder if any new interesting serve. Oh, for fuck's sake! God damn it. Okay, yeah, I can't make a video without acknowledging this because it's kind of entire game shaking, regardless of what server you're on. So I just want to preface this by saying this isn't going to be a very quick and dirty explainer. Okay? Anything I say, not hard fact, because there's a lot of people saying a lot of different things, a lot of people just straight up lying about a lot of different things because they're assholes, and a whole lot of you know? But let's start at how this started. Basically, there was an internal letter sent like a couple months ago of the project managers, staff members, and a couple other people basically talking about internal conflicts with not just PJB, but the project leadership as a whole, which includes the Wizards. I'm not sure of the context of this, but I'm assuming project leads means not just PJB, because while PJB is unquestioningly, or well, was that's we'll get to that, is unquestioningly the boss of Space Station 14 and the owner and main programmer of all of like the entirety of Space Station 14, engine wise, all that crap, the leader. I'm going to assume project leadership means all of the wizards who are basically the people who control the hub generally, even though PJB does most of that. Again, a little bit confused as to who does what, but I'm assuming it's the wizards, not just PJB. Basically, they made a letter to PJB talking about, and for, by the way, for staff, I need to confirm here and clarify. This is mains, admins, moderators, pretty much every staff team in existence. For reference, the maintainers are the ones that actually work on approving changes to the game. Like, let's say you program like a bytecode that says fuck. It's up to a maintainer to decide whether that gets added to the game or not. Make sure it doesn't conflate with other code. Make sure it doesn't crash the fucking game. Shit like that. Because this is an open source project, the maintainers have to be many in number, and they have a pretty big workload because, again, anyone can make a fucking contribution. As I was saying, admins and community moderators who, I don't think you need to be told what an admin does. They make sure the server works, and the community moderators do the same, but basically just on Discord. So, they basically had an entire, like, letter saying that they have fundamental issues. I'm not going to cover the specifics of their issue, but I'm going to just go over them in their titles. Basically, they were upset that the project leadership is ungovernable. There's no way, they don't believe there was a way to hold the leadership accountable for any way of, like if someone, like, on the project management, or project leadership team decided to start spamming slurs and telling people to off themselves, or doxing people, there's no way for the maintainers, admins, and community moderators to get rid of them, basically. Or even way for them to be addressed if there's even less specific and big issues. Again, I want to choose my words very carefully here because you shouldn't take what I'm saying as de facto fact. Again, very complicated situation. A lot of people saying a lot of different things. Do not conflate with what actually happens in what I'm saying and what actually happened. I've tried to keep it brief, uncomplicated, and simple so that everyone can understand what the hell is going on. These the people, I'm going to say the people that filled out the letter and like signed this letter that was sent to PJB are the letterers, for simplicity. So the letterers also had complaints that key infrastructure was not being managed. Basically, delegation of labor is impossible if there's a point of failure in event of someone gets put into a coma, someone's absent, someone is a bad actor or turns out to start sabotaging shit. There's no way for the key holders, very important term here, which I'm going to literally Google right now to make sure everyone understands. Key holder. A person opening or closing a business, managing security, or leading teams in a manager's absence. Basically, the key holders are, well, PJB, as PJB holds the keys and the passwords to the authentication servers. This also includes other people, which I believe PJB set up, but I'm not sure who those are, and I don't fucking care. But basically, the key holders are the people who control the authentication servers and Space Station 14 as a whole, the GitHub, things like that. Basically, if someone who was a key holder decided to just destroy the entire project, they can. Yeah. But basically, the key holders are unable to be held accountable for anything. The key holders don't want to be dealt with. There's no way to process, to manage, or transfer those keys temporarily in case anyone, including the key holders themselves, find it necessary. Like, say, someone had to be away for a month due to, like, life reasons or whatever. There's no real system in place to determine who gets to hold the key until then. So, then they wanted to go somewhere with establishing Face Wizards Federation as a legal entity. I have no fucking idea if this was manageable or not, but basically they wanted a legal entity that passes their own bylaws to a foundation for everything else in Space Station 14. Whether this is possible, both in terms of, like, currency costs, legal costs, because I'm pretty sure you want to hire a fucking lawyer to determine whether this is, like, proper or not, which, again, I'm not a lawyer, not legal advice. I don't know if I have to say that or not, because I never claimed to be a lawyer, but again, not a lawyer. So, I don't know if the legal entity thing is actually reasonable. Now, governance. Top of the structure, protections offered by legal entity, blah, 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 a lot of those same things. Basically, all internal groups, including a internal affairs group that PJB mentions later on in their response to this thing, gets, like, told and whatever, and again, it's a whole thing. Basically, they want there to be a autonomous work group and meaningful structures to address issues stemming from this lack of governance they talk about. Again, they don't want there to be an up-in-the-air situation where someone doesn't have the keys and they want someone to, or like a system and like a whole thing. Okay, let me explain this in terms of actual government, because I think it would make more sense if I did that. So, how long can a president of the United States be in office until that election is called? 4 years. Okay, what's the process for getting a new one? Well, there's a whole election as defined in several laws here. Okay, what happens if the president dies? Well, the Constitution says vice president becomes president and then appoints a new president or whatever. And then there's a whole thing where, again, this is not legal advice. Then there's a whole thing where what if certain key positions, like, for example, the presidential advisors, which are assigned by the president, are killed off. Like, let's say, like, several important leaders of the U.S. government are, like, hit by a major terrorist attack or something. And again, hypothetical here. And they need to decide who leads, who's in control, who gets the box of nukes, which in this case is going to represent the key holders and the keys to Space Station 14 in this hypothetical situation. Who determines who gets the nuke codes? The nuke disk. Captain dies, who gets the nuke disk? That's determined by corporate SOP. Saying that the Haas gets it. Also said it's a red alert, because duh. This is what they want in a, again, less complicated, less wordy, and less section as in how they want to make Space Station 14 a legal entity. Well, Wizards a legal entity, which is just Space Station 14, and I guess also the engine itself, but whatever. That's basically what they want. They want, like, policies and keys to determine who is in charge of this, what happens when this happens, blah, blah, blah. Reevaluation of responsibilities and transparency is also something I want. Now, here's the thing about transparency. Double-edged sword. For example, I want to paraphrase sort of one of Funky Station's like admins. I believe one of, I'm not going to mention if they're a headman or not. I don't believe they're a headman. I'm not sure. I don't know. One of Funky Station admins, when asked if they would do a public ban list like Starlight does, because Starlight has their ban list public, and I read these sometimes because they're sometimes really fucking funny. Like, you haven't given a second chance for a recently appealed perma ban. You've decided to stomp on it and spit on it. Ooh. You are not welcome here anymore. Therefore, you may not appeal the ban in our Discord. Ooh. Scathing words. But basically, they explained why they wouldn't, because bad actors will latch on to any ban made and use that as an excuse to harass the people involved in the banning. Either the people who've been banned for sometimes a completely fine and justified reason, or the people who are doing the bannings. Hell, I've experienced this once before on Starlight, not as a person who's gotten banned, but basically one of the admins banned someone for something that wasn't a part of the rules, and they got like 20 fucking pings about it in the span of an hour when one would have sufficed. Again, transparency is a double-edged sword. If you don't understand what harassment is, that's fine. Just trust me, that's really not a good thing. Getting like 20 pings in an hour for something, it's not good. It's very, very bad. Yeah. So that's basically all my thoughts on the transparency thing. I do think there should be like a clear history and clear record of how control of Space Station 14 is transferred, who's in charge, who's doing what, major decisions, shit like that. Again, apparently there's an internal shit list of maintainers that have bias held against them and are likely to be demoted at the soonest available opportunity. They don't mention that doesn't inspire confidence. I don't know if this exists, but yeah. Again, transparency could go up here in terms of things, but again, double-edged sword. I don't really have a position on this because I don't know. Again, all of this I'm looking at from an outsider here. Okay? And I'm reading this off to give you the context for how this will turn into the future Space Station 14, what's happened recently, and how Space Station is going forward. And if you're worried, Space Station is not going anywhere. I'll get into why once I'm done explaining what just happened here, but I'll explain why Space Station 14 will never go anywhere. Not at the stage it's at. We're too big. So, reevaluation of responsibilities is the last thing to mention. The project should be a position where leadership can more comfortably evaluate what parts of the project they find themselves suitable to work within. PJB has expressed herself that staff management and inter-staff communication is something she is not proficient in. This goes poorly. We understand that the damage goes both ways and is not enjoyable for anyone involved. Infrastructure as binding for the project leadership as is to the rest of staff, so these changes will help for the organization to be shaped around the staff's strengths without encumbrance of wanting to duties. So, separate section of personal management assignees to be directly I'm not posting the full. Now, from here, this is everything PJB is stating as a response. So, to be clear, I am not taking a position here until I announce that I'm taking a position on whether or not I believe this is a good choice. I'm just reading these off verbatim. So, necessary context for those unfamiliar with the project structure. Very helpful. Our organization hierarchy is as follows. At the bottom, we have the maintainers, the admins, and the mods. Above them, we have the PMs, project managers, and wizards. Also a bunch of other roles, but apparently they don't matter. Sure. Primary responsibility of PMs is to make project global decisions. This ranges from stuff like, do we make a trailer for the PC Games Show, to just doing hub administration. For those unaware of what hub administration entails, it's basically contacting servers who are in violation of the hub rules, which are posted publicly, and you can look them up. I'm not getting into it. But trust me, I think that the hub rules and like the way the hub has been managed and dealing with those, those people has been very well managed, I think. Post Nanotransit, which is before my time, I think every dehubbing has been clear, obvious, and direct in its intent, and what rules they violated. So, basically, we do this in private because it's irrelevant to most staff members, hub admin, or we actually care about information leakage. We do not consider staff chat secure enough for some decisions, especially when we have more actively we were more actively victims of constant harassment such abuse. Yes, things have happened which then led to more harassment. PMs are mostly selected based on merit, and all lead staff are also PMs. Wizards are me, PJB, as in PJB saying me, Dr. Smugleaf, and Zoldorf. We hold the keys to the infrastructure, project account, Discord ownership, that kind of stuff. Officially speaking, we also have final say over project decisions if need be. Smug and Zoldorf have been involved in other things most recent time, leaving one bonus believed. I believe the thing... Hold on, let me check something here. I believe the thing, like, fucking... Oh, no, never mind. I was completely incorrect about that. My apologies. Never mind. Okay, back to what I was saying here. Okay, so basically the wizards are in charge of the infrastructure and PJB has been the lead because Smug and Zoldorf has been involved in other stuff. So, PJB's response is that, and again, in general, read the actual post if you want. I am summarizing greatly because holy shit, this entire, like, PJB's response is enough to put in, like, a whole ass short story or, like, a paper on, like, a science project. And the actual responses to this, which some of which I'm going to get into, but most of which I will not, are 150 fucking posts, some of which are also essay length in response. Yeah, it's interesting. So, how do I explain? So basically, PJB says that the legal status thing is something designed to be good and feel good to listeners and insiders rather than actual. If it's possible, they would bankrupt the project on legal fees just to draft the bylaws, which that I agree with. I do agree that I think there's no fucking shot Space Station 14 can afford that, or even that's a good allocation of resources. If it's a good idea or not, and if it would potentially free, maybe. I just don't think that, again, watching a couple legal videos and learning about the costs of this shit, I don't think there's any way that would help. My own opinion over, back to what PJB is saying. PJB also mentions that this does not solve any of the problems, and they also find it insulting. When a founding prophet, or non-profit or such, whatever the name is in your jurisdiction, can act bylaws similar to the founding document, there's use for stuff like the goal of our organization is to develop and maintain Space 14. They use for the purpose of house rules is insane. What do these bylaws get you? Again, quoting here. Well, if you think they've been violated, you could sue over it. That's the extent of the bylaws of the function of a nonprofit. If you think project leadership is not following policy, capital P, I believe they're implying that policy as in you could be sued and these are effectively laws to you when you violate these policies. That's what the capital P means, I believe. If I'm wrong, oops. You can now rectify this by further bankrupting the project using months of developer time to get their way. So trying to solve the underlying interpersonal issues that led to it to begin with. And I recount as examples of organizations and then a bunch of other different names for organizations that have hugely complicated constitution entirely with elections for leadership and all the gadgets or some twist out of this course. What I imagine being debated here. Guess what? None of those are immune to the issues I described. The issues described in the letter. Again, the issue the letterers are bringing up. Again, the people that signed the letter are the letterers. That's what I'm calling them. So, I am unaware of how true any of what PJB is stating here is, but I do think, as someone who has been part of a... How should I reveal here? Basically, I was part of a organization within an organization. It's a fucking university club. Fuck it, who cares? If you could figure out where that is, then congrats. You've successfully doxed me. Whatever. I don't fucking care. Also, I traveled out of town to get to that fucking university anyway, so you haven't doxed me. So good. Yeah, good luck. Congratulations. But basically, they're saying that there's no real need for a proper constitution because it wouldn't actually solve anything, and that by having a constitution with hugely complicated elections or whatever, they're saying that wouldn't solve any of the issues. And as someone who has been part of an organization that had hugely complicated systems or whatever, what PJB is saying is completely reasonable. I have witnessed someone actively abuse the election cycle in my, again, university club to effectively gain power, then do nothing with it. and with no actual system in place to oust them, which you could argue is because we had a bad constitution, but whatever. Then they were ousted with sorry, words are hard. Then they were ousted from their position by an above power, which was the university, because the person who abused the elections got fucking, like, expelled or something. I don't remember the specifics of it. They just weren't in the university anymore, which is fantastic because they didn't think to inform any of us, and it basically killed the club that I really, really enjoyed. So, going on in this, they then had, I believe, a constitutional rewrite, and now the elections are internal rather than external. Or maybe they just did away with the Constitution at all and now just decided amongst themselves or whatever. So, I do agree that this is a potential thing, and I do agree that forming a legal entity wouldn't do anything. But if you have, but again, I recommend you read the whole thread if you believe you have the time. But I essentially don't really think that forming a legal entity would do much here. I think it would. I think I agree with PJB that it would hinder more than help. Here's the thing I do not agree with, though, is how they phrase this. Do you know what keeps organizations actually working? This is me quoting. The people in charge of them having both the desire and energy to do good. This brings me to my second point. The letter is basically stating that I'm such an asshole that the only way to work with me is under the threat of me getting sued. This is insulting and completely at odds with how the project was already governed. A lot of comparisons was drawn to TG Station nonprofit. They have done an excellent job making something designed to ensure their project continues living into the future. Some folks want us to copy them even. However, I'd like to draw some attention to their bylaws. These bylaws, as written, do not address the letter. They are quite similar to what we actually want out of a nonprofit for stewing the game. A safe place to manage the project's finances, true, that provides security if any one key holder is incapacitated or missing. This does not attempt to impose any further direction on a nonprofit should operate aside from what is plainly stated or easy to legally enforce. We intend to eventually spin up a nonprofit in this vein with similar purpose of ensuring the project safeguard for missing key holders, but the one demanded by the letter is not possible for the reasons stated above. So, the paragraph I want to highlight here is the one where they basically PJB is stating that the letter signers, the letterers, are saying I'm such an asshole that the only way to work with the other threat is me getting sued. This is, I believe, the crux of what happened here, and while I don't feel good about saying this, and I don't think that this will help me saying this, but, and again, I need to redouble down, do not send harassment to PJB. Anyone involved, but especially PJB. Please, God, do not fucking do that. I'm making this because I've gotten a lot of people in my Discord and a lot of people just in every section of Space Station 14 very, very concerned about the future of Space Station 14 and everything involved with it. But again, sending hate or harassment to PJB will not help, especially because PJB is currently leaving. They've decided they've had enough and they're leaving. They're exiting. And even without that especially, just don't fucking harass people. You have, like, again, going off, like, script here and from, like what my order of this was, I need to highlight this. PJB is Space Station 14. Not in a way that I think it will not continue without PJB, but PJB is responsible for coding basically fucking everything. The map viewer, which got fixed by PJB today as I'm making this video, as I'm, as they're currently leaving because they're done, they went through and they fixed the fucking Space Station 14 map viewer. Something I used in my station review videos because it was an incredibly helpful, well-coded, well-designed, easy-to-use system. I didn't realize it was PGB that coded that. Because that's how instrumental PJB is to fucking everything. Here, I'm going to scroll down, actually, because the coder of B Station... Sorry, the head coder of B Station, which... Let me fucking find their post here. No, not you. It was IJK, was it? Yapping, a lot of complaining. People calling PGB the devil or whatever. Here we go. Ike709, who head coder of B Station, and, like, third and a half of the Open Tree development team, they have done a lot of shit. And they made a couple of points here, which I'm not going to go into here. but I will bring up how something they said, because I'm not a coder and I do trust what they're saying just based on their experience here. So PJB, they're basically saying that what PJB has coded, or almost solely coded, is magical. It's a marvel of engineering that's vastly underappreciated, including but not limited to, in no particular order of impressiveness, the entire client sandbox / security model. The fact that we are able to make an account, log on to Space Station 14, and be protected and safe is pretty good. The differential download / asset deduplication system. Like, okay, you boot onto a Space Station 14 server. You play around on it. You go onto a different one. The servers, the client itself, like the Space Station 14 launcher client, will actively sort through all of the shit and the assets that is different and like conflicting between each server, and prune it so that you can just do one click, connect to any server you want, and log on without any fucking issues. And I do believe, as someone who has very, very limited knowledge of coding, that that is fucking magical. That is insanity. I believe. Like, replays existing as a concept at all. Like, for reference, the replay system. If you've seen, like for example, Hen. I'm going to bring up Hen here. Because I had to record a, video for Hen because his computer couldn't handle it and mine could, which I was happy to do. But I need to use this as a highlight here. Because Hen couldn't handle the replay system because the replay system is 100% accurate to what was happening in the round. 100%. It is an actual playback simulation of everything that happens in the game. And while I do not believe that that is entirely accurate, like 100% accurate, because again, there's bugs and whatever, and sometimes assets don't update when you go back in time, and trust me, that big blood call video I had to make a little difficult, but again, and sometimes the replays cut off too early, but whatever. Again, the fact that the replay system works at all is fucking magical. And a lot of people don't see that. And I get why. They're not coders. I'm not a coder. And it took, me actually properly giving a thunk about it. And thanks to the Mr. B station here, who is Ike, 3 numbers, just straight up saying, hey, what's good? This is all the shit PJB has coded, and PJB is a fantastic coder, which I agree with. I agree fundamentally, and I don't think there's any room for debate here, especially among the letterers, because again, the letterers did not want to oust PJB. PJB exiting the project is not something that they wanted. I'll get into what's happening in PJB leaving the project, but essentially, PJB, fantastic fucking coder, you owe my videos, Lil Ned's videos, Armox videos, everyone's shit, all of it. If you enjoy any of my videos, you owe that to PJB. If you enjoy any of Lil Ned's videos, you owe that to PJB. If you've enjoyed Space Station at all, Space Station 14, not 13, Space Station 14 at all, you owe that to the contribution, code, and sweat and blood and tears of PJ fucking B. And I will not accept any kind of reality where people think, oh, PJB is such an asshole. They fucking hate the project. They hate it. PJB spent 9 years of their fucking life on this project because they believed in it. And I hate that this has to end this way. But just due to the way certain things have happened, which I'll get into, I think now actually, this has to be the way it ends. But again, do not harass PJB. And while I will not call them a victim in this, because again, they're not exactly blameless for the way this went down. In fact, I'll get into that, but harassing them won't help. It'll only hurt, and you owe it to PJB to be at least a bare fucking minimum of respectful. And before you come into the comments and start bitching about PJB without actually watching this fucking video, I will find you and I will ban you. Again, the way the fucking YouTube comments banning system is, you won't know if you're banned. Attention. Hell, I've banned a fair bit of people who just decided to start cussing out PJB the moment that this entire situation went down. Because I wasn't actually napping, that was a joke. happening and all that shit because they just decided to start fucking going off about PJB. And I'll still be there fucking banning you people because I will not accept actual insults to PJB. If you want to say that, like, if you want to criticize what they're doing, sure. Criticize what they're doing, what they've said, what their ideas are, but not them as a person. Because PJB is a fucking good person and a good coder. Maybe not a good person. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know them personally, but they're a damn good coder, and that is demonstrated in the fact that Space Station 14 is able to do half of the shit it does. So, and I'll get back into, and I'll get a little further. I could go even further how PJB has made Space Station 14, because a lot of people harassing PJB owes PJB a lot, because PJB, for reference, even on the fucking D-Hub servers that have actively harassed her, PJB has not removed them from the auth servers, I don't believe. I believe they're still able to use them to log in. That's why, like, Hullrot, even though it's D-Hubbed, and Ratbite, I believe, are still able to use the authentication servers. Hell, they didn't even ban fucking White Dream, who actively, like, lied about there being, YouTube unfriendly words on the hub servers, to where PJB had to make a 24-hour response to deal with their bullshit. PJB didn't even demote them and, like, get them off the fucking auth servers, and you could just make a server right now, connect to the auth servers, and use it. And has that been used by bad actors to DDoS the entirety of Space Station 14? Damn right it has. But PJB still fucking does it because they believe in the goddamn project. Okay, rants about how PJB, like, how Space Station 14 is, like, owes PJB everything. Because, and again, I don't agree with everything that the B Station guy said. That is Ike 709, because it's a lot, and I don't think I agree with most of it because I haven't read it properly, and I don't want to talk about that, because otherwise this video will be longer than it already is. It's already half a fucking hour, and we're still not even close to done. Jesus. So, back to what PJB is saying. Visiting project governments, letter assisting the term project leadership to describe the source of the problem. Make no mistake, it's exclusively about me and no one else. It is clear from the signatories that personal message written by members of the staff. Frankly, I feel this phrasing serves more to obfuscate the message more than it does anything else. It feels overly formal. There's a huge corporate structure. No, it's just me they're complaining about. I'm not an overlord. You can ping me on Discord. I rarely do anything special. I don't regularly flare around my authority unless I really feel like it's justified. I am regularly absent due to my mental health and rarely asked to sign off on anything. I will repeat that sentence again. I am regularly absent due to my mental health and rarely asked to sign off on anything. Most of the stuff I do on the project involving other staff level, I do at the same level as them, just for more experience. Then I expect to be treated in how I treat others. The fact that most of the project is self-governed, everyone here is a volunteer who works on whatever they want to do. In my experience, directing people to do the things they don't care about doesn't really work in practice. Yeah, you read letters, a bunch of shit like this. And it's a bunch of, like, snippets about how people find that upper management is hard to talk to. None of these messages are close to reality, which is what PGB is saying. Project members rarely interact with me as leadership because I barely do anything leadership-wise. I've never demanded you to get my personal approval for all the random shit like work groups. I've absolutely never done anything of... I've never done anything to block any of that either. In fact, two types of groups explicitly here: work groups and IA, internal affairs, as conflict issues above. Work groups explicitly overseen by lead retainers, not project leadership, and internal affairs and other odds, things. So basically, here is, like, an entire section about how basically the internal affairs section and the IA rules, which are too much to get, where 5 people were elected to the internal affairs role, and basically they say that they were completely disorganized, they didn't do fucking anything, and they just kind of demanded to be able to go with 0 oversights for the Wizards, which, and in my personal opinion, completely justifiably, the PJB completely disallowed. Cover discussion, poly documents, blah, blah, blah. And then the IA went silent when pressed about their prior gross misconduct, and then apparently they disbanded a couple months later. Like, and PJB then asks, and a rhetorical question here, what the fuck PJB was supposed to do there? There wasn't none of the problems with policy or leadership were intermingled. And again, I want to reference earlier, elections are not fucking great. Like, if you think democracy is completely flawless, oh, you got another thing coming. Especially in, like, smaller groups like this. So, again, PJB stated the letters talking about project leadership, they're exclusively talking about me. And apparently they claim that PJB... sorry, let me rephrase. PJB claims that they signed the letter blaming PJB for things that they're responsible for themselves. We need a way to hold abusive or inactive project leadership accountable. Maybe it's obvious when I put it like this, but do not blame depressed or overworked volunteers for inactivity. I'm the one that gets called an asshole who doesn't know how to manage people, and I'm smart enough to realize this. Who governs the wizards, and I even mentioned Littlehead, and basically, this is like one of the last paragraphs I'm going to fucking like read out, because one, it involves Littlehead, and I like Littlehead. I think Littlehead is a cool guy who's done a lot to maintain positivity and update the people about the project. So yeah, shout out to Littlehead. In one of Littlehead's Q&A videos, he mentioned that he'd like to see more positivity among staff in the upstream, and I figured that was probably partially aimed at me. Whether it was or not, Littlehead, if you're watching this by any chance, which, hi, I still appreciate you. I think you're still 20 times the YouTuber I am. But you can answer if this was aimed at you or not. I don't know if it was, but considering that like more positivity among staff and upstream and PJB is staff, I have to assume that it was probably partially aimed at PJB. PJB then apologizes, saying, "Sorry, I just can't. I'm tired, my mental health is poor at best, and my mood fluctuates between functional and generally abysmal. Coding is the one thing I feel like doing to convince myself I have an actual purpose in life, and the last thing I want to do in my days deal with cleaning up after some maintainer who didn't bother to read a PR before merging it. I genuinely try to be patient with people, but I just do not have the energy sometimes. Look, I'm always doing my best to listen and improve, and I have improved over the last couple of years. I have no opinion on that. I do not know PJB well enough. I have not kept up well enough to judge that, so I'm not going to say anything about it. I still want the best for this project, and I do listen. Short of waiting for a unicorn to show up, I do not think you could ask much better than that." So, there's a bunch of other things which I'm going to skip because there's actual issues with the project. Developer player features is slow by PR backlog. Scale of always need leadership. Why did PJB leave? PJB basically left to take like a fucking break and basically just, and in their words, let basically Space Station 14 run itself in PJB's absence before returning. So, again, everything I've discussed, I don't really have a proper opinion on, and whether PJB is right or wrong, or who's good, who's bad, implying that. But also, I don't want to imply that there's a good or a bad in the situation. There's a lot of complicated shit. Pretty much fucking everyone involved here could be a little more polite about like the way this went down. But I do genuinely believe, and I'll discuss more later, that this was a bomb that was gonna go off, regardless of how this was handled. I don't think there was a way to resolve. Like, at the point this got to, I don't think there was a way to resolve this in a way that was, like, properly healthy for everyone involved. So, I'm gonna, like, now go into PJB's response to this entire thing, and basically just read out the what happens now section. When I started work on Space Station 14, I always intended for the game to be much more than Space Station 13. While we have improved on some fronts, we have many critical parts that are just left rolling in a far worse state instead. At this point, I strongly believe that drastic action is needed. If not, the game will slowly continue withering. Can I do that? Maybe. Will I do my best? I could try. Do I trust anybody else to do it better than me? I wish. So I'm coming back. My first order of business will be attempt to throw out as many of the overly wasteful policies that we have. Second order of business is taking inventory both in technical and design state of the game. Third order of business is lighting up priorities that he's working on. Pausing the quoting here to say, yeah, I agree with this. I think that these are good goals for a leader to have. The fourth thing is the problem. Fourth order of business, as determined by the Wizard Council, and not just me, I will be demoting all members of staff who have signed the letter and haven't apologized since. I see the letter as nothing but an attempt to throw me under the bus with the signatories treated as accordingly. Oh boy, yeah. That is the end of it, and there's a lot of fucking like reading, words, and stuff. But I could discuss why removing the staff who have signed the letter is like a bad choice, but I don't think I really need to. I don't think there's like anyone that thinks that removing like, again, I want to highlight here I'm pretty sure both of the active headmans, 2/3 of the staff team, which represented about a half of the active staff team. These are paraphrased numbers that I do not believe are completely correct, but yeah. So yeah, not great. No, not great. I don't think it's a really good choice. So yeah, then Discord exploded, everything exploded, and just like everything, I mean, predictable results took place. You know, everything exploded, nothing made sense. Everyone was screaming, pissing, and shitting because they believed that the project was effectively dying. And I don't think the project could die. And before I get into what the ramifications of everything that's happened has been from the point of this letter being posted, I'm going to stop and explain to you why Space Station 14, in its current state, will not die, regardless of what happens. I am going to play a character here. Hello, I am Tadio. I have an amazingly charming voice. I explain things very well. I am very open and communicative with my community. You should picture me as the Chad, the Sigma male. Sorry, Tay. I see that the upstream of Space Station 14 is exploding. I am concerned. I, Tadio, have put several years of my life into Space Station 14 as well. I have a server called Funky Station that has blossomed into something great. I have made mistakes. I have things to improve on too. However, due to the actions of upstream, I will not stand idly by and assume that this is the end for anything. No, I will let Space Station 14 continue. And in fact, I have several things for people to agree with. Hello, I am Armok. I am incredibly attractive and have long, luscious locks. I have just recently made Trauma Station into a very popular server. I have spent years of my life making videos on Space Station 14. I find them quite fun and successful. I enjoy this game too much to let this game explode. I will continue to find a way to host Trauma Station even if the hub servers go down. Hello, my name is Liltonhead. I have made a million fucking Nukies videos. I like spectating Nukies. On my server, I spectate the Nukies. I wish to continue spectating... I wish to continue spectating the Nukies. As such, even if Space Station 14 goes down, I will continue to find a way to host my server, Harmony, so that I can continue spectating the Nukies. Sorry, Liltonhead. And for one final one, let me just go, I don't know, pick a fucking server, I don't know, here. I am Dr. Smugleaf. I'm a wizard. I've made RMC-14 into something on Space Station 14 that can be considered its own fucking game. I have spent countless hours of my life on this game. I will not let it die just because of one issue happening in upstream. Hi, me again, Acorn. I'm no longer playing characters of hosts, which, first of all, if you're a host and watching this, oops. Sorry, I'm pretty sure those were insulting, but the basics are understandable, right? Nobody in any fork. And I want to highlight here with one final host. Hi, I'm PJB. I've made a lot of mistakes, maybe. Or maybe not, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable playing PJB as a character, but basically, I'm PJB. I have spent even fucking longer on Space Station 14, developing it, continuing it, playing on Wisdom sometimes. I will not let Space Station 14 die, even if I am ousted. Now, PJB has decided to leave, but I imagine that was PJB's first thought. in this entire thing, which is a shared, I guess, something. No, you know what? I'm not even gonna say I guess. No, I know this is a shared thing among pretty much every fucking host that gives a damn. Every host on every server is unwilling to just let their community fizzle out or die just because the upstream goes down. I don't think PJB even, despite PJB actively leaving Space Station 14 as we speak, and like that entire system happening, I don't believe that PJB herself is completely willing to leave Space Station 14 behind and just let it die. Both in terms of time investment and this community, because I've felt it. And I hate doing this, but I have to, but I, like, this whole YouTube thing, like, I made this YouTube channel and started making videos of Space Station 14 at a pretty dark time in my life, and let me tell you, the love that I've felt from this fucking community, it's there. Is there a lot of bad actors? Is there a lot of bad apples? Is there a lot of people that are fucking annoying? Yeah. But there's even more love. There's more people who just want to play funny haha Space Station 14 game. Where clowns slip and Haas game or whatever. And that's the main thing I want you to take away from this video. Less the drama and more so that every single fucking person in spades on every goddamn community has come out and said they will not let this shit just die. It's not happening. It doesn't matter what fucking space game drama happens next. You won't be affected on whatever server you're on unless the hub just goes completely nuclear. Which, again, I don't think the hub's going to go completely nuclear. I don't think PJB is immature enough, or... Actually, no, I don't think PJB is capable of it. I don't think PJB is willing to nuke everything they've built out of some hypothetical spite that I'm not even sure they have. Yeah. No, PJB is... I don't think PJB could do it, even if, even if PJB wanted to. I don't think they could. Yeah. So, there's been a lot of whole... Oh, PJB this, PJB that. So, what the fuck is actually going on, Acorn? You've beaten around the bush a lot. So... let's go through it. What the fuck is actually happening? Well, PJB in the Discord said this. Fine, you fucking win. 9 fucking years of my life on this project, and even the people I thought I could call my closest friends all decided it wasn't even worth a shred of human acknowledgement in the end. Decided a suitable successor. I will transfer literally everything. You can have this project and choke on it for all I care. At least do it by the end of the year so I don't just shut everything down and donate the money to a charity. I'm sorry to the people that believe in me or know that I'm needed. I just can't anymore. Space Station 14 will never recover this, but I genuinely tried. So, I don't believe Space Station 14 will never recover from this. Do I believe that we're missing out on, like, one of... No, not even one of. The best coder that has ever worked on Space Station? Probably. Yeah. But I do think that this is a step in the right direction. Not the PJB ousting, but PJB not being in charge. Because, and I said I don't want to discuss this earlier, and I still don't feel comfortable saying it again, but PJB has faced, like, years of harassment for a couple of bad decisions, and I don't think it's an unpopular or even contested take that PJB, if you're somehow watching this, which, I don't know, maybe you are, probably, I don't know, fucking, I don't know, whatever, please get some help. I don't mean that as like a, oh, you're insane, you need to get help. I mean that like out of genuine fear, out of, I don't even know the words for this, but, fuck, my autism is flaring. I don't know the words, I don't know how to describe this, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid that this will affect you enough to where you're never willing to return. I'm afraid that you won't find a healthy way to deal with the harassment that's caused it, like, this entire situation to get this bad. But I do genuinely hope, like, that, at least, like, the little bit of good that comes out of this is that you're able to go and find, like, some peace, I guess. Some solace. Some de-stressing, I guess. Yeah. Because you've said it yourself, you're not exactly great at the whole community leadership thing, and the constant fucking harassment from those people and people with, I'm not gonna say misplaced concerns. No, people who just fucking shouldn't be saying shit because they just want to be a harassing little dick. Like, please, like, take this time, get some help. If you want to come back, I don't think there'll be a single server or even Space Station 14 upstream, like Wisden, who would reject the idea of you coming back and contributing your fucking amazing coding skills to this project that you've spent 9 years building. But I do think that PJB, not speaking to PJB anymore, but I do think PJB is severely depressed. Like, they've been accused of being narcissistic, which I don't believe is an intentional thing of like, oh, I'm the greatest, oh, I'm fucking fantastic. I think instead, it's more of a, how do I put this? I think it's more of a, PJB has faced so much shit and stress and harassment over this project over the years that it just kind of bogged down to where the only voices in their head were the ones calling them shit, to where they think everyone is against them, when that's not the case. You can both simultaneously support what someone, like who someone is, while objecting to the decisions they make. And in a haze of self-doubt and what is probably depression, I'm not a psychologist, but I've been in this kind of position before, and the paranoia of everyone's out to get me and everyone hates me and all that, whatever, it's strong. It's probably something that's affecting PJB, and probably what caused this to get so bad, to explode like this. Apologies for my runny nose, but I'm gonna continue because I'm tearing up because I'm sad, because I predicted this would happen. I don't think I predicted it publicly, but I predicted this like privately after, if you remember, maybe it was like a year and a half ago, I uploaded a funny joke video about like me nuking the then, well, still headman, Admiral Obvious's house because he called me a stinky after I fucking did everything, or after I did like everything bad. It was a fucking joke video. And after that, the mass headman exodus from Wisden took place. And yeah, I predicted that unless there was significant change at the higher levels of the project on Wisden, that this would end up coming around again and happening again. And the changes didn't happen. So, yeah. Let's now get into what the aftermath is of all this. Basically, Space Station 14, like the upstream, which I'm gonna call, which is Wisden, has basically given a new role of community leave. Dr. Smugleaf has come out. They seem to be running things, but basically they're undoing all of the removals and whatever. And there's an internal staff voter who should be the temp key holder. After this, there will be a restructuring of Space Station 14 as a project. Princess Chibbles, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, is now community lead, as we finally realize that the community matters in the community-driven game. Every staff who has been purged is willing to come back should have their Discord, GitHub, in-game, and whatever permissions restored. More organization rule restructuring will be done after the key holder vote and transfer. We'll continue updating this every 24 hours or wherever big decisions are made. My apologies for the absolute shitstorm that the last 48 hours have been, as well to everyone who has had to deal with a shitty or hostile environment during this, even long before all this has happened. And then, announcement from Princess Chibbles, who is apparently now the community lead. I really don't know which, like, if this is on par with Dr. Smugleaf as a wizard, or below, or wherever, but basically, they'll have an announcement upon who the key holders will be by tomorrow. Word announcement, I'm going to save it for then. That way I cut everything in one big message. Thank you for your patience. It is currently the day before, so the day you're seeing this, I'm editing this and recording this on the day before. So, yeah. If you have concerns, maybe they'll be addressed there. If the announcement is big enough, I might make a follow-up on this, but again, the main message I want you to take away from this video is that Space Station 14 is not going anywhere, that this entire problem was going to be a bomb that was going to go off eventually. I wish it hadn't have been this bad, and I wish I was wrong that the bomb wouldn't go off, and that for all of PJB's missteps in how they've handled these kind of situations, PJB is still the sole biggest contributor to Space Station 14 as a project above anyone. Like, nobody has done more for Space Station than PJB, and the harassment and hate PGB has faced over everything involving Space Station 14 is fucking disgusting. It's horrific. None of this should have happened. And I hope that through all of this, that PJB is able to take a proper break, and I guess rest assured that the project is in good hands or something. I don't know. I want to end this video on a positive note, but sometimes there's just not a positive note to end on. Not everyone gets their perfect resolution. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking by through this. Thanks for just talking about it in my Discord respectfully, because you guys were actually very respectful in my Discord. I really appreciate that. Like, I didn't have to smack anyone for being an annoying little fucking bitch rat and, like, insulting PGB or going off about, like, oh my god, PJB is the worst ever, or whatever. Like, yeah. Like, the only guy I had to, like, minorly smack was someone who, like, made a joke, but not, like, a, oh my god, bad joke, whatever. And, like, in fact, we had more concern from people like, shout out to Moleman in my Discord for being, like, very, very, you know, proper on it, as well as Admiral Obvious for, like, coming in and being willing to discuss, like, even in the minor way you did during, like, the situation. Yeah. There's it's been a chaotic 72 hours, huh? It's been a very chaotic 72 hours, but yeah. Thanks for watching. It feels weird to do the channel member thing here, but I guess I will, because I did say I'd do it. So thank you to Odine Mansion Boy, who's back. Thank you. Bagwars Tundra, Angel Yuki, Gooseham, Snore, Miffed, Talcon Sedver, Modern Jedi, Mr. X Awesome, Double, The Lace Hungarian, Just Period, Plansec, Hello, River Spirit, Wakefield H, User Faceless, Altar, Soaking Cat, North Star, and Phil and Timo. I would say support the show down below, but I guess I did just say it, actually. But yeah. If this video was long and ranty and you're still here at the end of it, thanks. I imagine this video is going to kill my fucking channel retention, but I don't fucking care. I'm just glad that there's a little bit of good that can come out of this. Even if it's a small amount. That's it. That's the video. Bye.